Welcome, movie lovers. Today, we're diving into the harrowing and unforgettable world of Dogman from 2023. Get ready to experience the gripping tale of Doug and his loyal pack of dogs as they defy the odds, confronting a world filled with danger and injustice. Will their unique bond be strong enough to overcome the trials they face? If you enjoy movie recaps and reviews, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos. Let's dive right in. On a stormy night in New Jersey, the police are stationed outside the city, searching for a fugitive. They stop a speeding truck, and an officer approaches the driver to request identification. The driver has no ID. Meanwhile, other officers inspect the back of the truck and are astonished to discover a large group of dogs. Moments later, psychiatrist Evelyn arrives at the police station to assess the driver and determine whether he should be sent to jail or a mental institution. When she enters the cell, she finds the driver in a wheelchair with a fresh wound. As he turns around, Evelyn realizes he is a drag queen named Doug, who explains that the dogs in the truck are his children. Evelyn then persuades Doug to share his story. Doug recounts his childhood, growing up in a strict, religious family. His father, Mike, raised dogs for fighting and would starve them before each fight to make them more aggressive. Mike was abusive, hitting Doug and his mother for any excuse, particularly if they tried to feed the dogs. Mike favored his older son, Richie, who took after him. Despite the dog's aggression during fights, they were affectionate towards Doug, who would lie next to their cage to talk and pet them, often sneaking them food. One day, Richie caught Doug feeding the dogs and reported it to Mike. During lunch, Mike confronted Doug, who admitted he preferred the dogs to his family. Enraged, Mike dragged Doug to the cage and threw him inside. The dogs immediately cuddled and comforted Doug. From that moment on, Doug lived in the cage, even during the harsh winters, surviving on scraps thrown by his father. One day, Doug's mother brought him cans of food, urging him to hide them, and revealed she was leaving because she was pregnant and wanted a better life for the baby. Doug tells Evelyn he does not resent his mother for abandoning him. Later, Richie put up a sign on the cage reading "In the name of God," blaming Doug for their mother's departure. However, Doug found solace in seeing God, spelled dog, from inside the cage. After Evelyn leaves for the day, a flashback reveals the events leading up to Doug's arrest. A man named Juan entered an abandoned college building and found a Doberman guarding the corridor. He asked for the Dogman, and a door opened to Doug's hidden quarters, which were surprisingly well-maintained considering the building's dilapidated state. Juan had installed cameras for Doug months earlier. Now, he brought Doug a puppy found by Martha, an elderly laundromat owner who did Doug's laundry. Juan explained that a gangster known as the Executioner had been extorting money from local businesses weekly, and Martha could no longer afford to pay him. She had been forced to sell cherished family belongings. Doug assured Juan he would handle the situation. Later, Doug dressed as a widow and waited near the club where the gangsters gathered. He sent a small dog inside with a phone in its mouth. The dog delivered the phone to the Executioner just as it rang. As the gangster answered the call, a larger dog entered the club and bit the Executioner's groin, causing him to scream in pain. Doug warned the Executioner not to move or the dog would inflict permanent damage. He demanded the gangster leave Martha alone, threatening that the dog would enjoy a meal of nuts if he didn't comply. The Executioner agreed, but as soon as the dogs left the bar, he sent his men after them. In the present day, morning arrives, and Evelyn visits Doug's home while the police are gathering evidence. The scene is gruesome, with bodies, blood, and bullet holes everywhere. After collecting a few items, Evelyn returns to the station, where Doug has already cleaned up and changed. He thanks her for bringing his belongings and continues his story. Young Doug lived in the cage for months, getting his education from magazines hidden behind a plank, likely left by his mother. One day, a dog gave birth to puppies, and Doug hid them from his family. Unfortunately, Richie discovered him and told their father. Mike, armed and furious, came out to handle the puppies. Doug clung to the cage door, yelling at Mike, while the dogs barked and growled. Enraged, Mike shot Doug through the door, hitting his hand and causing him to lose a finger. The bullet ricocheted into Doug's spine. Fearing the situation might turn fatal, Richie dragged Mike inside, dropping a handkerchief for Doug. Unable to move much, Doug wrapped his bleeding hand with the handkerchief and placed the severed finger in a small bag. He then showed his dog a magazine picture of a police car and gave it the bag with the finger, instructing the dog to find the police. The dog ran across town with the bag in its mouth and sat by a police car until the officers noticed. Soon, numerous officers surrounded Doug's house, storming in to find the injured boy in the cage and Richie clinging to Mike in fear. An ambulance swiftly took Doug away, but the doctor did not remove the bullet. In the present, Doug explains to Evelyn that with his leg braces, he can walk a little, just enough to get into bed. He can also stand, but only for a few seconds. The doctors didn't remove the bullet because doing so could potentially leave him completely paraplegic, a risk he faces every time he stands. Mike received a 20-year sentence, but committed suicide after 2 weeks. Richie was sentenced to 12 years and was released after 8 for good behavior. On the day of his release, a few dogs waited for him outside the prison and began to follow him. As Richie walked through town, more dogs joined in until he noticed. He tried to escape through an alley, but the dogs attacked and killed him. After his hospital release, Doug was sent to an orphanage but struggled to make friends. While the other kids played outside, Doug stayed in the library, reading in his wheelchair. The only person who befriended him was Salma, Doug's first and only love. Salma was a young woman who helped at the orphanage and loved Shakespeare. Knowing Doug liked to read, she introduced him to her favorite books and convinced him to perform small plays for the other kids. Despite their props being cheap or handmade, they put heart and passion into their acting, which the other children loved. Doug enjoyed dressing up and learning makeup from Salma, who said it allowed him to be whoever he wanted. Salma was bright, creative, and had a unique worldview, which quickly made Doug fall in love with her. Unfortunately, she left the orphanage to pursue an acting career. Over the years, Doug collected every news article about her plays, adding them to his scrapbook. He eventually became an adult, attended college online, earned a bachelor's degree in biological sciences, and got a job at a dog shelter. When Salma finally made it to Broadway, Doug went to see her play. He tried to approach the stage, but everyone was standing, blocking his access. Fortunately, he was allowed backstage, where Salma immediately recognized him. She appreciated his flowers and was thrilled when he gifted her the scrapbook. Flattered, she thanked him with a kiss, raising his hopes. However, before Doug could confess his feelings, the director entered and complimented the scrapbook. Doug was devastated to learn Salma was married to the director and they were expecting a baby. Heartbroken, Doug congratulated them and returned to the shelter, where he stood up to yell and hit the cages in his fury. The dogs barked at him, and when he fell to the floor, one dog managed to open its cage, allowing all the dogs to come out and comfort him. Afterward, Doug cut his hair as a symbol of letting go. Sometime later, 2 government officials visited Doug to inform him that the shelter was being closed due to budget cuts. Doug pointed out that the budget had been cut every year since he took the job, yet he managed to keep the shelter running through donations, with the only municipal support being the building itself. The officials, feeling caught, admitted that the site was being sold to a developer for profit. Doug was given until Monday to vacate, and the dogs were to be sent to other shelters. However, when Monday arrived, the authorities found the building empty. Doug had run away with the dogs. Doug relocated to an abandoned college building, where he spent his time reading to his canine family. He began searching for a job, but every place turned him down due to his wheelchair. One afternoon, Doug went to a club looking for a bartender and arrived in time to watch the drag queens rehearse. He was immediately captivated by their costumes and performances. The owner informed Doug that the bar position was filled, but Doug expressed his desire to perform instead, sharing his experience. The owner doubted that an audience would be interested in a performance from someone in a wheelchair, so Doug stood up and explained he could stand for an entire song. The queens were impressed and found him endearing, convincing the owner to give Doug a chance. The following Friday, the queens helped Doug get clothes, makeup, and a wig for his performance. Determined to make a good impression, he removed his leg braces and asked his new friends to be ready to catch him when he finished. The queens helped him to the stage, and he waited behind the curtains. When introduced as Edith Piaf, Doug began singing in French, making slight movements with his hands. The audience and his co-workers were enchanted by his voice, feeling the raw emotion in the lyrics. By the end of his performance, everyone clapped and cheered, wanting more. The curtains closed, and the queens rushed to catch Doug before he fell. From then on, Doug was allowed to perform at the club every Friday night. However, performing didn't pay enough to live on, so Doug started a service matching lonely people with the right dog for companionship and protection. He also provided extra help if needed, hinting at engaging in activities similar to what he did with the executioner. One day, while Doug was cooking, the dogs brought him the ingredients he needed from the pantry. This sparked an idea in Doug about fair redistribution of wealth. His smallest dog would sneak into rich people's houses through small, unlocked windows or ceiling hatches. Once inside, the dog would open a larger entrance, allowing the other dogs to enter and steal all the jewelry they could carry. No one ever suspected that animals were behind the thefts. Things went well until one day. A rich lady contacted insurance agent Ackerman, who suspected she was committing insurance fraud. She claimed every window and door in her house had been locked, except for a tiny bathroom window, and her dogs didn't bark. The lady provided security camera tapes, and when Ackerman watched them, he saw a dog running out with something in its mouth. It seemed crazy, but Ackerman remembered other mysterious cases from recent months and reviewed the other recordings. He was shocked to discover the same dogs always appeared, dismissed as random strays by other agents. In one recording, Ackerman saw a man pretending to be a guard, waiting for the dogs with a truck. He traced the license plate to Doug and found his profile, eventually discovering Doug was working at the club. One Friday night, Ackerman attended Doug's performance and was shocked to see him wearing one of the stolen necklaces. After the show, Ackerman went to the dressing room with a flower, pretending to be Doug's fan. He asked him out for dinner, but Doug declined, saying he had to go home to feed his kids. When Doug left the bar, Ackerman discreetly followed him. As Doug entered the old building, the dogs warned him, and he immediately told them to hide. Ackerman encountered the Doberman guarding the corridor and considered shooting, but Doug opened the door and told him the jewelry was in the safe. After Ackerman retrieved the box, he sat down to check its contents. Doug used this moment to order his dogs to kill him. Doug then shared why he got arrested. The evening after helping Martha, the executioner and his gang found the abandoned building by torturing Juan until he talked. Once they confirmed the location, they killed Juan. The sound alerted Doug, who told the dogs to prepare for battle while he grabbed a weapon. The executioner ignored the Doberman and started shooting the metal door without success, while Doug escaped through a narrow hidden corridor. A little dog ran by, and a gangster followed it into a hole, only to be dragged and killed by bigger dogs. The gang split up, following different dogs into various traps set by Doug. One gangster was electrocuted in a wet bathroom, another was shot by Doug through a wall, and others were mauled by the dogs. One fell into a hidden pit and was pushed down by another dog. Doug then came over and shot them both. In the corridor, a gangster stepped on a trap and was left hanging from the ceiling, becoming easy prey for a dog. Another gangster fell into a trap and was mauled. The executioner, growing nervous, asked for a better weapon. Doug opened fire through the wall, taking down several men. The executioner shot back, injuring Doug, who managed to duck and drag himself through the narrow corridor back to his quarters. The executioner finally breached the door but found himself out of bullets. The dogs seized the opportunity and killed him. Afterward, Doug and his dogs escaped in a truck, leading to their capture by the police. While waiting in the police car, Doug signaled the dogs, who immediately ran away. In the present, Evelyn tells Doug she's heard enough and leaves. Doug smokes near the window and smiles when he hears a dog howl. His dog had been waiting outside, and at the sound of the howl, all the other dogs came to the area. Doug dresses up with the things Evelyn brought him, and the dogs enter the station, scaring the front guard into passing out. A slim dog steals the keys, crosses the bars, and drops the keys by Doug's door. Doug escapes, leaving his chair behind, determined to walk to the church across the street. He asks God for judgment and takes his last breath as he falls to the ground. All his dogs surround him, and every dog in town comes to say goodbye. Meanwhile, the Doberman goes to Evelyn's house to protect her from her violent ex-husband. The film concludes with a poignant tribute to Doug's life and legacy. Dogman is an enthralling film that masterfully blends action, drama, and a touch of the extraordinary. The film's protagonist, Doug, captivates with his resilience and ingenuity. His deep connection with his pack of dogs adds a unique and heartwarming element to the story, making it stand out in the realm of crime dramas. The performances are compelling, the plot is engaging, and the emotional undertones resonate deeply, making Dogman a memorable and impactful watch. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more movie reviews and recaps. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest videos. Share your thoughts on Dogman in the comments below. What did you think of Doug's journey? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.